The knife gleamed red under Seoul's frozen streetlights as blood pooled beneath the stranger's feet. Naomi's breath caught in her throat. She should run. She should scream. But something in his dark, pain-filled eyes stopped her cold. Something desperate and raw that made her heart twist with impossible recognition. When their gazes locked, the world tilted on its axis. This broken, bleeding man would become everything she never knew she needed, and everything she should fear. Welcome to K-Seoul Afro Stories, besties. Before we dive in, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love connecting with you all. December in Seoul had teeth. Naomi felt them bite through her coat as she hurried down the empty street, her breath forming white clouds in the bitter night air. Teaching English at a hagwon didn't pay enough for a taxi, so she walked, even at midnight, even when exhaustion made her bones ache. That's when she saw him. A man leaned against the wall of a shuttered convenience store. One hand pressed to his side, dark liquid seeping between his fingers. His expensive black suit was torn and blood-stained. His face, half hidden in shadow, was pale and tight with pain. Naomi froze. Every survival instinct screamed at her to keep walking, but she'd grown up in Detroit, where turning a blind eye meant being complicit. And those eyes, when they met hers, held something that made her feet refuse to move. "You should go," he said in perfect English, his voice rough but controlled. "This doesn't concern you. You're bleeding." Naomi's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I'm calling an ambulance." "No." The word cracked like a whip. He straightened despite the obvious pain, and Naomi suddenly realized how tall he was, how much danger radiated from him even wounded. No hospitals, no police. Red flags, every one of them screaming. But Naomi thought about the hour-long subway ride to her tiny apartment, about going home to an empty room and instant noodles, about being alone in this massive city where she'd never quite belonged. "Then come with me," she heard herself say. "I live 2 blocks away. I can at least clean that wound." He studied her face for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in his dark eyes. Finally, he nodded. The walk to her apartment felt eternal. He leaned on her more than she expected, his weight solid and warm despite the cold. Up close, she could see his face clearly, sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips pressed thin with pain. Devastatingly handsome in a way that made her heart skip. Inside her cramped studio, Naomi helped him onto her bed, the only real furniture she owned besides a desk and a folding chair. Under the harsh overhead light, she could see the damage clearly. A deep gash along his ribs, probably from a knife. Multiple bruises blooming across his torso where his shirt had torn. "This needs stitches," she said, gathering her first aid kit with shaking hands. "Do your best." His eyes tracked her movements with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You're not afraid of me." It wasn't a question, but Naomi answered anyway. "Should I be?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Most people are." She cleaned the wound with steady hands despite her racing pulse. This close, she could smell him. Expensive cologne mixed with copper and something darker. His muscles tensed under her fingers, but he didn't make a sound, even when she pressed the edges of the cut together with butterfly bandages. "I'm Naomi," she said, needing to fill the charged silence. "Choi Sung-min." He watched her face. "You can call me Sung-min." That night, he slept on her bed while she took the floor, despite his protests. She lay awake, listening to his breathing, wondering what madness had possessed her to bring a bleeding stranger home, wondering why some part of her didn't regret it at all. The next morning, Naomi woke to the smell of coffee. She sat up, disoriented, to find Sung-min standing by her tiny kitchenette, shirtless, bandages stark white against his skin. He'd found her instant coffee and was pouring 2 cups with the ease of someone comfortable in any space. "You should be resting," Naomi said, scrambling to her feet. "I've had worse." He handed her a cup, and their fingers brushed. Electricity shot up her arm. From his slight pause, she knew he felt it too. "Thank you for last night. Not many people would have helped. Not many people would have refused a hospital." Naomi sipped the coffee, grateful for something to do with her hands. "What happened to you?" "Business dispute." His tone made it clear the subject was closed. "I should go. I've imposed enough." But he didn't move, neither did she. They stood in the cramped kitchen, morning light filtering through her single window, something heavy and unspoken hanging between them. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. Her co-worker, asking if she'd seen the news. Naomi put it on speaker while she checked her messages. That's when she saw it. Breaking news notification. Her blood turned to ice. Gang violence in Gangnam last night. Multiple casualties. Police searching for Choi Sung-min, suspected head of the Baekho organization. The phone slipped from her hands. She looked up at Sung-min, at this man who'd drunk coffee in her kitchen, who'd thanked her with genuine warmth in his eyes. "You're a gangster." The words came out flat, shocked. "I prefer entrepreneur with complicated business practices." But there was no humor in his voice now, only weariness. "I'm sorry, Naomi. You should never have been involved in this." He moved toward the door. Naomi's mind screamed at her to let him go, to change the locks, to forget this ever happened. But her mouth had other ideas. "Wait." He turned, hope and resignation warring on his face. "Tell me the truth," she demanded. "All of it. Then I'll decide if you leave." Sung-min sat back down, and for the next hour, he told her everything. About his father's organization, inherited at 23 when violence took both his parents. About the empire he'd built, not glorified, but honest about the darkness and the grey areas. About power and protection. About the impossible choices between bad and worse. "I'm not a good man," he finished quietly. "But I have rules. No drugs, no human trafficking. We protect our territory, and people who can't go to the police come to us instead." "That doesn't make it right." But Naomi's voice wavered. "No, it doesn't." He stood, and this time she didn't stop him. At the door, he paused. "If you need anything, ever, call this number." He set a business card on her desk. "I owe you my life, Naomi. That's not a debt I take lightly." Then he was gone, and Naomi was left alone with the phantom warmth of his presence and a growing ache in her chest that terrified her more than anything he'd confessed. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Naomi went to work, taught her classes, came home. Every moment she felt Sung-min's absence like a missing limb. She told herself it was relief, that she dodged a bullet. But late at night she found herself touching the spot on her floor where he'd slept, remembering the way he'd looked at her. On the 4th night, her co-worker invited her to a bar in Itaewon. Naomi almost said no, but the walls of her apartment felt suffocating. She needed noise, people, distraction from thoughts of dark eyes and dangerous smiles. The bar was crowded and loud. Naomi had just ordered a drink when a man sidled up next to her, too close, his breath reeking of soju. "You're beautiful," he slurred in broken English. "Dance with me." "No, thank you." Naomi tried to move away, but he grabbed her wrist. "Come on, don't be unfriendly." She said no. The voice came from behind them, cold as December wind. Naomi's heart stopped. She turned to find Sung-min standing there, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, his expression pleasant, but his eyes promising violence. The drunk man took one look at him and scurried away. "What are you doing here?" Naomi breathed. "Following you." He said it without shame. "Making sure you're safe. I don't need a stalker. You need protection." His jaw clenched. "My enemies don't know about you yet, but they will. Being kind to me put a target on your back." Before Naomi could respond, another man approached, younger, handsome, clearly interested. Hey, I saw what happened. Are you okay? Can I buy you a drink? Something dark flickered across Sung-min's face. He stepped between them with lethal grace. She's with me. His voice was soft, deadly. Leave. The man left. Fast. Naomi grabbed Sung-min's arm, feeling iron muscle beneath the expensive fabric. You can't just threaten everyone who talks to me. Watch me. He looked down at her, and the possessiveness in his eyes should have scared her. Instead, it made heat pool low in her stomach. You're mine, Naomi. You saved me. That means something in my world. I'm not yours. But her voice shook, betraying her. I'm not anyone's. Liar. He stepped closer, backing her against the bar. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. You feel it too. This thing between us. Tell me you don't. She couldn't. God help her, she couldn't. I should run from you, she whispered. But you won't. His lips hovered just above hers, close enough that she could feel his breath. Because you're brave, Naomi. Brave enough to help a stranger. Brave enough to hear the truth. Brave enough to want something dangerous. He kissed her then, and Naomi's world ignited. His mouth was demanding, possessive, hungry. She kissed him back with equal desperation, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sung-min's control had visibly frayed. Come home with me, he said against her lips. Let me show you what you've done to me. Naomi should have said no, should have pushed him away, gone back to her safe, small life. But when he looked at her like that, like she was air and he was drowning, she couldn't remember why safety mattered. Yes, she breathed. His penthouse was everything her apartment wasn't. Sleek, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. But Naomi barely noticed. The moment the door closed, Sung-min's mouth was on hers again, desperate and demanding. He backed her against the wall, his hands everywhere, worshipping and claiming in equal measure. Tell me to stop, he growled against her throat. Tell me you don't want this. Don't stop. Naomi's fingers tangled in his hair. Don't you dare stop. What happened next was a blur of heat and hunger, clothes discarded in a trail to his bedroom, hands exploring skin, breaths mingling, his name falling from her lips like a prayer. He was gentle despite his size, careful despite his obvious need, checking her face for any hesitation. There was none. Naomi wanted him with a ferocity that should have terrified her. When they finally came together, it felt like coming home and falling off a cliff simultaneously, thrilling and terrifying and absolutely right. After, tangled in silk sheets, Sung-min traced patterns on her bare shoulder. Stay, he murmured. Don't leave in the morning. But morning came with cruel clarity. Naomi woke before dawn, Sung-min's arm heavy across her waist, and reality crashed down. She'd just slept with a Mafia boss, had let herself believe, for a few hours, that this could be normal. It couldn't. It never would be. She slipped from the bed, gathering her clothes with shaking hands. She made it to the elevator before her tears started falling. The ride down felt like descending into cold water, drowning in the impossibility of wanting something she could never have. She didn't go home. Instead, she walked to the nearest subway station and rode to the end of the line, then back, riding in circles because movement felt better than stillness. Her phone buzzed incessantly, Sung-min calling again and again. She didn't answer. By afternoon, she finally returned to her apartment. The moment she opened the door, she knew he'd been there. Roses covered every surface, deep red and impossibly fragrant. A note lay on her desk in sharp, precise handwriting. Running doesn't make you safe, it just makes you alone. Let me in, Naomi. Let me protect you. Let me love you. Her hands trembled as she read it. Part of her wanted to crumple the note, throw away the flowers, rebuild her walls. But a larger part, the part that had kissed him back, that had said yes, that had felt something shift and lock into place when he looked at her. That part was already lost. She picked up her phone and called him. He answered on the first ring. "Naomi." "I can't do this," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't be with someone whose life is violence. I can't wait for the day you don't come home." "Then I'll change." His voice was rough with emotion. "I've been working on it, transitioning the organization toward legitimate business. It'll take time, but I'll do it. For you, only for you. You can't just change who you are. Watch me." Steel entered his tone. "I've spent 10 years building an empire. I'll spend the next 10 tearing it down if that's what it takes to keep you. Sung-min, I love you." The words hit like a physical blow. "I've loved you since you helped a bleeding stranger when anyone sane would have run. You're the first good thing I've touched that hasn't turned to ash. Don't ask me to let you go." Naomi closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "This is insane." "I know. Come to dinner tonight, just dinner. Give me a chance to prove I can be what you need." Against every instinct, every shred of common sense, Naomi heard herself agree. Dinner was at a small, family-run restaurant in a quiet neighborhood. No guards, no displays of power, just Sung-min in casual clothes, helping an elderly Korean couple with their dinner rush because they were short-staffed. Naomi watched him joke with customers, clear tables, his dangerous edges softened by simple kindness. "They were my parents' friends," he explained later, walking her home through streets that felt safer with him beside her. "They lost their son in a car accident 5 years ago. I help when I can." "You're not what I expected," Naomi admitted. "I'm exactly what you expected, but I'm also more." He stopped, turning to face her. "I won't lie about what I am, but I'm trying to be better. For them." He nodded back toward the restaurant. "For my people. For you." Before Naomi could respond, his phone rang. His expression darkened as he answered, speaking rapid Korean. When he hung up, tension radiated from him. "What is it?" Naomi asked. "My rivals, the Jopok clan. They've learned about you." His jaw clenched. "I need to get you somewhere safe. Now." They made it 2 blocks before the black van cut them off. Men poured out, armed and efficient. Sung-min shoved Naomi behind him, but there were too many. She saw him fight, saw him take down 3 men before they overwhelmed him, saw the gun pressed to his head. "Come quietly," the leader said in English, "or he dies." Naomi's vision tunneled. She stepped forward, hands raised, and let them take her. The warehouse they brought her to was cold and dark. They zip-tied her to a chair and left her there, alone with her terror. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt elastic, meaningless. Then she heard it. Gunfire. Shouting. The door exploded inward, and Sung-min appeared, covered in blood, eyes wild, a gun in each hand. He looked like the devil himself, and Naomi had never been so relieved in her life. "Close your eyes," he ordered, his voice unrecognizable. She did. More gunfire, close and deafening. Then his hands on her face, gentle despite everything. "It's over. You're safe. I've got you." He carried her out of that warehouse and straight to a private hospital, refusing to let anyone else touch her. The doctor confirmed she was unharmed, just shaken. Sung-min didn't leave her side, his hand gripping hers like a lifeline. "I'm sorry," he said when they were finally alone. "God, Naomi, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. It's exactly my fault." His voice broke. "Everyone I care about becomes a target. I should let you go. Should disappear from your life completely. But I can't. I'm too selfish, too desperate. I need you, like I need air." Naomi looked at this powerful, dangerous man who was falling apart because she'd been threatened. Looked at the blood on his hands from fighting his way to her. Looked at the raw, honest emotion on his face. "Then don't let me go," she whispered. Don't ever let me go. He kissed her then, desperate and relieved and claiming. Marry me, he said against her lips. Let me protect you properly. Let me give you everything. That's insane. We barely know each other. I know everything that matters. You're brave and kind and stubborn. You see the man inside the monster. You're the only light in my dark world. His hands framed her face. Say yes, Naomi. Save me again. She should have said no, should have asked for time, for normalcy, for anything resembling sense. But when had anything about them made sense? Yes, she breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. The wedding happened fast. A small ceremony with a judge, witnesses from both their worlds, traditional Korean bows and modern vows. Naomi wore white, and Sung-min looked at her like she was salvation in a dress. When he slipped the ring on her finger, she felt the weight of his promise, his protection, his absolutely devotion. The next year transformed both their lives. Sung-min was true to his word, systematically dismantling the illegal operations while building legitimate businesses. It was slow, dangerous work. More than once, Naomi waited up late, heart in her throat, until he came home bloodied, but alive. But he always came home. And slowly, the violence faded. The empire shifted. The man the world had feared became the businessman the community respected. It wasn't easy, it wasn't clean, but it was real. Naomi found her place too, using her skills to help immigrant families navigate Seoul's systems, to teach English at community centres, to build bridges between worlds. She learned to navigate the curious looks, the whispered rumours, the reality of loving someone with a complicated past. Because that's what love was, she realised. Not ignoring the darkness, but choosing to walk through it together. Not demanding perfection, but committing to growth. Not running from fear, but facing it hand in hand. 1 year after their wedding, Naomi stood in their bathroom, staring at the positive pregnancy test with shaking hands. Terror and joy warred in her chest. She found Sung-min in his study, reviewing contracts for his newest legitimate venture. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out. He went very still. Then, slowly, he stood and crossed to her. His hands settled on her waist, reverent and possessive. "You're sure? Just took the test." His eyes blazed with something that made her breath catch. "I'm going to be a father." "You're going to be a father," she confirmed, laughing and crying simultaneously. He dropped to his knees, pressing his face to her still flat stomach. "I'll protect you both," he vowed. "With everything I am. No one will ever hurt you." "I know," Naomi whispered, running her fingers through his hair. "I've always known." 8 months later, Naomi held their daughter in the same hospital where Sung-min had refused to leave her side after the kidnapping. The baby had her mother's eyes and her father's serious expression, perfect and tiny, and theirs. Sung-min sat beside them, his dangerous hands impossibly gentle as he touched, his daughter's tiny fingers. "She's perfect." "She's ours," Naomi corrected. "Our miracle." He kissed her then, soft and reverent. "You saved me that night," he murmured, "in more ways than one." "We saved each other," Naomi replied, watching their daughter sleep peacefully between them. Outside, Seoul sparkled in the darkness, a city of millions where one chance encounter had changed 2 lives forever, where a woman's kindness had cracked open a closed heart, where love had bloomed in the most unlikely soil and grown into something unshakable. It hadn't been easy, it hadn't been safe, but it had been real, messy and complicated, and absolutely, perfectly right. And as Naomi sat in that hospital room, her husband beside her, their daughter in her arms, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd make the same choice again. Every single time. Because some strangers aren't meant to stay strangers. Some bleeding men in dark alleys are meant to become home. And sometimes, the most dangerous choice is the only one worth making.